Welcome back to TOX TOX Booze? Whew. Starting out this one fresh. Welcome back to TOX News. 2 broadcasts, 1 day. Let's get into it. Oh, yeah. We are brought to you, yet again, the King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. And their free album, Polygona Wana Land. So, we're going to be continuing on today. We're going to continue talking about the BLM movement. So earlier today, I covered the ACLED and their new study, covering about how about 93% of the BLM protests, or related protests, 93% of those were peaceful. So what I have to get in here today is a bit more on this Black Lives Matter movement, because I actually believe it is one of the most purveying narratives in our country that is tearing us apart from the inside. Our racial tensions have not really gone anywhere, and it seems like we're willing to go to civil war yet again just for it. All over racial tensions yet again, nearly 200 years later. To open it here, we have John Cover. He goes to protest and interview some people, and I found this to be a little bit interesting. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but I am interested in this
say it again. You're not
right
black.
here.
So stop telling me my life matters. I know my life matters. I don't need you to tell me my life matters. Are you black? All lives matter. All lives matter. Period. Period. No, all lives
matter, you wouldn't be here.
Yes, I would.
Because you're stupid! Because you're stupid! You are so stupid!
All lives matter. You're not black.
You have no idea what you're talking about. It's not great now than it was before. Not me. I just want to know. Mommy is waiting for you. Mommy.
When I protested for Black Lives Matter, you guys were there.
I'm black. Stop speaking for me. I don't need you to speak for black people. You're not black. You're not black. You're not black. You're not black.
Right now? Well, you gotta understand that we're all coming, we're trying to...
As you can tell, my lights aren't on, so give me 1 second. Oh, yeah. All right. So, as you can tell, that is hysterical ranting. No logic or reason is being used in this particular case. We just have a shouting match between counter-protesters and protesters. And from what I can tell, we have the only 2 black people there on the counter-protester side of the pro-Trump, pro-Pence side, probably the back the blue side, right? And we have the young man saying, "You're not black, you can't talk for me, you don't know. I'm here to represent my beliefs, and my representation is to be represented by me." He's taking the power, which I can greatly appreciate. I greatly appreciate that. The only issue here is that there's just absolutely no convincing going on. There is a young man who shows up and says, "I'm black. Your opinion does not matter." And, you know, maybe... It's hard because white people are the majority of this country, so white people need to be a part of the conversation when it comes to Black Lives Matter, the defund the police, the abolition of the police, racial justice, the many issues that we're facing and nobody's actually coming to the table about. Our president only meets with police union leaders. I don't hear too much about local representatives either going out of their way to speak with the heads of these movements or organizations. So we're not really seeing great democracy going on. It's mostly just 2 sides shouting at each other that says, "Believe my reality!" Not healthy. But that's the kind of shit we bring to you right here on TOX News. I'm going to go a little bit further into who they're calling MAGA Hulk. I'm going to go a little bit further into his speech here, and then I'm going to move on. It's a pretty short video, but we got shit to do.
Come together as a country, as a unit. You know,
United. We're all Americans.
Let him talk. Let him talk.
so we're trying to come together as a country. I think right now, especially on the right side of history, there's a lot.
I'm going to admit that the first bit of the shouting match has actually turned into dialogue. So that's great. If we're getting this here like philosophical dialectics of the left and right brain of America, both not really in the reason side or the logical side, as we'll see as MAGA Hulk expands on his ideas. I'll get to that, but yeah, you know what? I'll probably play this whole video. I'll probably will, because as I can tell, it's gotten a little bit more civil, and we can actually start discussing the issues somewhat, and not just have a shouting match about I'm right, no, you're wrong, no, you're wrong.
Coming together that's being had. Now, when it comes to the left, unfortunately, it's a lot of division, it's a lot of hate, it's a lot of
burn buildings.
Exactly, looting stores. That's not productive when it comes to coming together as America. We're putting out a.
But, you know, if you go back into the study that I went over today, is that less than 7% of the protests in America have led to what they call riots. What they have dubbed as riots. What are riots? If it's, you know, concerning property damage and the like. But that's a very low percentage of cases for you to just downright shut down any discussions that protesters have. And this is the success that the right-wing narrative is having by conflating protests with riots. Every protest is a riot, but no riot is a protest. That's what they're on.
A message of peace, while the left seems to be putting out a message of hate and division. So our economy was great right before the coronavirus hit, so that was wonderful when it comes to America.
He doesn't explain why the right is the unifier and the left is the divider. He did not explain why.
When it comes to blacks, when it comes to Hispanics, when it comes to...
The economy was great, though. He's going to that. So I guess the economy being great unifies people. And the economy being great completely eradicates racism, apparently.
Women, you know, low unemployment numbers across the board. You know what I mean? The America First policies that are beneficial to our country. There we go.
He needs to. What are the American First policies that benefited America? Please expand on that idea. He took a pause, and then we saw a bit of a cut here. So I'm not sure if he did expand on that idea or not. But we're about to get into something. He has something else to say. So,
like I said, on the America First policies that are beneficial to Americans, we need to look out for Americans and bolster our ranks up first.
What are those policies, though?
Before we start taking care of other countries.
Because that's just rhetoric. Like, I support America first. I support making America great again. I support keeping America great again. I support the V-shape economy. It's really rhetoric and slogans. I don't think Trump has too many. I don't support the radical do-nothing Democrats. You know, I support law and order, and you know, it's not. You're when you talk like that, I guess it's more of a support in what did I want to say, in ideas, not actual policy, just kind of ideas that float around in ideology, and that ideology plays a bit more on, I guess, if we were going to split it up in like that X and Y grid of political spectrum and where you sit, is that if you speak these certain slogans, that'll decide on the spot of ideology that you'll fit, because it's not specific policies or actual things that we can do to do these things. As long as the I'm sending tariffs to China as a part of the American First policy, and you're like, fuck China, America first. And it's just like, but how, why, how does that affect? You know, nothing expanding on that really ever wants to reach across to the right base. But once the left starts talking about it, it's, you're just criticizing our president and you're antagonizing and hating America. And it's, we are not in a toxic sphere. But here's the thing, though, is that in order to participate in politics, I think people need to be a lot more well informed beyond beyond slogans. Besides rhetorical phrases, needs to come from like actions. What are the actions you want to see taken? Not the names of the actions, but the actions in themselves. And what would be the benefit of those actions? That's policy. Policy is actions with an intended outcome that sometimes has unintended consequences. Other times it does have intended consequences and non-benefits, or at least benefits to certain sides, disproportionately mixed out. It's very complex, but that's the thing, is that we have to have these complex issues without them turning into emotional shouting matches. And this is an issue both on the left and the right. To say that the left is totally feelings, not facts, and the right's totally facts, not feelings, that's absolutism. That's just not true. Yeah.
Yes. Like when it comes to our families, we want to take care of our families first. We want to be able to help out our families.
Yeah, then hold on. Is your policy America first? Because that's a whole nation, that's a whole community. Or is your policy family first? Because that's a very minute section. And if you want politics to focus in on just making benefits for your family, I feel like that ideology is going to lead to corrupt power. Too much centralized power, in fact. So... all right.
And then we can help out the community, but we can't reverse that. Help out the communities. And
that's so strange, though. That's so strange because that's not the thing about government. It's not supposed to help individual families and then go out and help the community and then go help the nation. No, the nation is supposed to help the community, and the community is supposed to come together and support families. The flow of power is completely fucked. And I'm not trying to be rude, but he doesn't understand the actual flow of power. We do live where the government dictates and it comes downwards, like how I just said, from the government to the community, to the community, to the people. But it also should be to the people, to the community, to the government. And it should be a reciprocal kind of process. I feel like a diagram of two circles might be the best idea, to have two wheels here with the local government then intersecting with the wider government in order to enact federal public policies that bring out equality across the nation, because certain states can go in certain directions, like how the South went in other directions when the North did. It all I always get so lost in the complexities because politics is so complex. But to think that, all right, we need to focus in on our families, then we can start with the communities. It just kind of even leads to this idea of almost like, if your family isn't up to snuff, then you shouldn't even participate in the community. And maybe it even just speaks to how alienated and isolated families are from the greater family of the community. So just everything affects each other. And so if we can try to get them on balance with each other, then I see the most benefit. So I am not America first. I'm kind of everything first. Everything. I don't know why it's always like this or that. We can't take care of international issues when we got issues at home. We can't take care of ourselves if others aren't taking care of themselves. It's just like, I don't know why people can't try to aim for both. And maybe we just can't handle enough on our plates. I don't know.
And then neglect our families, and then what? You know what I mean?
What do you think about defunding the police?
I'm not for that at all.
Police reform.
So we're pivoting
What about police
the
reform?
If we want to have a conversation,
Police brutality, what do you think of that?
I think that it's overblown, 100% overblown.
But we're against police brutality. Why? Can I ask you why?
Yeah, absolutely. The way I look at it is that, okay, if, like within the black community, all right, we're very, if you look at the black community, we tend to be more violent than any other racial demographic. We got about 6% of the population, which is the black men, committing, you got it, over 50% of the crimes.
Okay. So, just because the police brutality numbers are lower than the actual black crime rate, that makes one issue greater than the other. Again, I would get so lost in complexities here that like I would have to have a face-to-face conversation. Otherwise, I'm just going to get looped into my own thought. It just ignores the low income for those high crime rates because that's the closest correlation causation that we've found. The causation, whatever. Poverty tends to lead to higher violent crime rates or different kinds of crime rates in general than most higher income neighborhoods. But the violent crime definitely is more prevalent in lower income cities and countries. Poverty or crime follows poverty because the different set of opportunities as well to earn more money than you normally would, say by playing ball. Or even support systems that you would or wouldn't have. I'm not really sure what it's like to need to join a gang or have to join a gang or anything like that. I mean, people choose to join the police gang, and that's a completely different kind of... It's a state-sanctioned gang, so it has a very different level of support system in it. But we're not going to be able to address crime rates, whether it's black on black, white on white, or what have you. We can't address that unless we address poverty and then other, I would say, social safety nets, because really everybody just wants the same thing that everybody wants, health, happiness, shelter. If those basic needs are met, I wonder how much crime would be necessary, honestly. Because then if we actually have those necessities met, then these people are arguing that we're inherently deviant. And I know that's a very persistent thought in the Catholic and Christian churches, but I don't believe we are inherently evil or nefarious. I think we are born blank slates for the most part. Our genes do affect a lot, but at the same time, we do have blank slate opportunities to create the world around us. I think everybody does. See, I'm getting lost in the complexities yet again, but to throw the black community under the bus, saying they can't stop killing each other, so why should we focus on police brutality, is just a heartless way of saying I don't care when the state kills black people. It also just kind of feels like it feeds into the idea that black people are always criminal. And that isn't I can't imagine waking up in a country that thinks I'm always criminal, even when I'm trying to do the right thing. So, let's expand on his thought here, but I really hate the argument of black people can't stop committing crimes against themselves, so police brutality is not that big of an issue. And then we think about, well, police kill more white people than black people every year because we live in a white majority nation. Well, then police brutality is really a problem, isn't it? Because it kills no matter, apparently no matter what race you are, it kills. And there's countries that have such less numbers, and they even have more white people than we do, right? They always talk about how the lack of cultural diversity in those nations is more prosperous for the nation because they don't disagree based on racial tensions. But it's just, it's not the hegemony that leads to less white people deaths. We have more than them every year. So it's not necessarily just a racial problem, right? It's a police brutality problem. The racial problem is when it's 3 times more likely for black people to be killed. And it's they're incarcerated at higher rates. The loss applies pressure from the boot much harder if you were black. And it allows somebody to sit on your neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And it's been 4 months and we still don't have any developments of justice. Derek Chauvin might actually be a millionaire when he gets out of jail. If he even gets out of the situation, he could be a millionaire if he's able to keep his pensions. So, complexities on complexities. There's no easy way to answer any of these questions, but to do it with the same shit that everybody says through the right-wing media is just lazy. And it makes me upset because I can't really blame the MAGA Hulk, because people really need to become more informed on their own about these positions and not necessarily take in one news source over the other. I know so much of the right-wing propaganda machine because I look and watch it. But at the same time, I am familiar with the issues that they have because I expand on their ideas to show that they're not expanding on their own ideas themselves. All right. Thank you for listening to my long-winded rant. I hope it came across well. I highly recommend sitting with this with like a little bit of King Gizzard Lizard playing in the background and also sipping on coffee and smoking a bowl. I think this show is much better with all of that in it. All right.
DOJ, Department of Justice, U.S. Department of Justice.
The statistics? No, do you know? Where do you get, like, where is that backed up from?
The substance. Do you know?
Well, I mean, you look at the FBI statistics as well. You know what I'm saying?
You know that all that is literally from Trump, and Trump, there's no liable.
Pre-Trump. It's been, see, when we have a fact, y'all tell us that fact's not real. Where'd you get it? But y'all can come up with these ambiguous facts like F Trump. That's not a fact. And that, what?
Do you not think Trump is racist?
Not at all.
Absolutely not. No.
So, yeah, they cherry-picked a fact, and we're just getting back into feelings.
I know Trump. Do you want to see a picture? My family's known Trump since my parents were 19. I know him. So I don't need you telling me who I know is racist. Yeah.
I'm asking you, there's literally videos of him saying, I want these illegal aliens out of my country. When, first of all, this country, where is this country from? Who was...
Where's that video? Never seen that.
What about the children? What about the
Just like
children?
Even if you have like something, he'd be like, I've never heard that video. I never heard Trump call a caravan of refugees invaders. I've never heard him say illegal alien. Illegal alien is a racist term. I can't believe, like, and this is something that the left is guilty of too, because it is a racist fucking term to call human beings aliens. Like, this seriously is like one of those things when people are like, I wonder in the 22nd century, when they look back, what are those things that we're going to be ashamed of? That's one of them. Illegal aliens? Aliens. You're calling human beings aliens. And you know what that leads to? Child separation at fucking concentration camps. What? But again, I can't convince any right-winger of my specific beliefs in the narrative. And I don't think the person here who's coming with no facts, I appreciate them fighting the good fight. The unfortunate thing is, though, is that we have to know the issues that we're talking about. And the shittiest part about that is that they're very complex and that I don't even have all of it. But if I don't do this right here, I can't get enough of it at all. So we have a lot of fucking work to do is what I keep saying. And I mean, it's on both the left and the right, because there's got to be some people on the right conservative page that wants to actually get past racism and just focus in on a conservative budget for the government, right? And just forget the whole cultural social issues. Politics shouldn't have affected all of that. But since politics and race has been intertwined in our country for a while, guess what? That means culture wars. That means Yep. All right.
What about that?
Yeah, he's trying to stop that.
Contradicting, hypocritical.
How about that video? You can't, though. Okay, well then pull it up.
I appreciate
Department of Justice. I can show. Okay, I'm happy to show you. Pull up your...
His facts about the Department of Justice thing, and like, yeah, it's true. Like, Black Americans kill more Black Americans than police kill Black Americans. That's a fact, but that does not mean that when police kill Black Americans, that is justified. That's actually the antithesis of the argument. It is not justified. It is not the job of the police to be judge, jury, and executioner. They are only supposed to be the detainees. It's wild. And I think it's fascinating too. I like how somebody brought up in the crowd, and we're not even talking about that now, how like immigration is like kind of a form of human trafficking, right? So say you have like families inside of the United States. They didn't expand on this, but it kind of got me thinking. You have families inside of the United States, right? And they're either waiting for their asylum status, waiting for trial, or many different issues, right? And ICE has been going around and picking people up and taking them to detention centers, which a lot of them are private prisons. Human trafficking. That's human trafficking, is by going, kidnapping people from their houses. It's state sanctioned, so it goes from kidnapping to arresting or detaining, and then moving them to a prison, or I guess a warehouse, or a concentration camp, or whatever you want to call it, a place of detainment. They keep them there, where they shelter them, they, I guess, feed them, they treat them like shit. There's sexual abuse going on. There's probably more abuse than that going on. I mean, I can look it up right here. Let's see. Because I don't want to throw accusations. I know it's a thing, but I just don't want to throw that out there willy-nilly. July 9th, migrant kids in overcrowded Arizona border station allege sexual assault and retaliation from U.S. agents. February 27th, thousands of migrant children say they were sexually abused. There's actually a website here, American Immigration Council. High profile cases highlight Border Patrol abuses and need for systemic change. That was as late as April 2018. 2019, May 31st, over 200 allegations of abuse against migrant children. But there's only one case of Homeland Security disciplining someone. Documents reveal serious abuse allegations by minors. That's October 17, 2019. Let's see, we got a new report. Let's see here. It's loading, logi.org. Loading. Oh, that one's from 2011. So we had abuse going on in 2011 as well. It's not, yeah, I mean, at this point, too, we don't really get enough reporting from the abuse going on down at the border because we're focused on these other issues, I guess. The Daily Beast has a more recent article from June 15th. I guess it's an op-ed, so there's that. Let's see. The more than 4,500 complaints about alleged physical and sexual abuse of migrant and refugee children in these kinds of detention facilities that the federal government received over a period of 4 years, as revealed by the Justice Department last February. The abuse is alleged to have surged when the Trump administration implemented its cruel and ill-conceived policy of separating families at the U.S.-Mexico border to deter others from coming. So I'm going to click this PDF here from the DOJ. Why would it be in that form? Like, come on. Let's see, allegations reported to ORR and DOJ. We have a total of 1,000 in there, and we have 279. Yeah, there's thousands of reported cases. Thousands of reported cases of abuse. And I don't doubt it. It's a racist institution that does not see any value in human lives beyond citizenship status. That's it. So, yeah, I just think it's funny that she's like, what about the human trafficking? And he's like, well, it's Trump stopping that. But he also did increase it pretty bad at the border. You feel me, dog?
Your video.
They trying to put an end to that. Illegal immigration brings about a lot of kids being trafficked across the border. So we need to be able to stop that. And one way to stop that is bolstering our presence on the border.
See, and then that's crazy is that the kids who are coming here seeking asylum and refuge are actually being trafficked for pedophilia and sex work. Okay. All right. Sure. Well, I didn't even want to watch that whole thing, but I did. That was 30 minutes. Freedom Rally, Beverly Hills. Thank you, John Cover, for that wonderful bit. But now I want to move on to Benny Chaperone talking about the insane claim in a Biden ad. This insane, crazy, cuckoo. All right. My show is ridiculous. My show is, I hope, the shadow or bizarre version of the Ben Shapiro show over at Daily Wire, but I cannot wait to get into this. Whew, brace yourselves. This one's 6 minutes and 45 seconds, so hopefully I can do it under 30 minutes. But let's get it, because I have one more video after this as well.
To revivify the race relations card against Donald Trump. And that means that he started off yesterday, put out this ad that I commented upon, because the ad is particularly egregious. It promotes an extraordinarily untrue and also negative message for black Americans. Here was Joe Biden's ad about race relations in the United States.
Why in this nation do black Americans wake up knowing that they could lose their life in the course of just living their life?
Part of the point of freedom is to be free from brutality, from injustice, from racism, and all of its manifestations.
We have to let people know that we not only understand their struggle, but they understand the fact they deserve to be treated with dignity. They gotta know.
The key to this ad is the first line that Joe Biden says, right? So Joe Biden says, why in this nation do black Americans wake up knowing they could lose their life in the course of just living their life? That is an insane contention. I mean, fully crazy. There is no evidence that is the case. There are 42 million black Americans, 42 million of them. The median household income for black Americans is about $41,000 a year.
There is no evidence for that claim. $41,000 a year? So what I actually got from this one right here, unlike the median household income, which divides all households into two halves, the mean outcome is the average income earned by American. Oh, did I? I might have typed that in wrong. All right, so the mean household is damn, Asians just killing it. We got $58,985 for the black community, apparently. Hispanic and Latino sees $68,000, whites see $89,000, and Asians see $114,000. So Asians apparently are the richest in America. So that's pretty great. It's pretty wild. Also, we have the census here. Maybe that's where he got his number. Did he get his number from 2017? Oh my god, Ben, there's new numbers. You fucking kidding me? And then, like, I like, too, it at least shows the recession numbers, but then they also only started tracking Asian numbers since, like, 1985. And they've always been a lot more wealthier than the white median line, or the median household. But what that would tell me is that they started out moving here a bit richer. You know what I'm saying? That it would be richer families coming here in the first place. Just to start at 70,000 median income, that means that they already came here with labor skills that were able to get them higher paying jobs and the like. As you can see, the black number has started lower than everybody else's. Even the Hispanic community, which is pretty surprising to me, but that just tells me yet again that the Hispanic community was wealthy enough to migrate without issues, whereas the black community, I'm not sure what the percentage is, but for the most part, were brought here completely without money. And even when they tried to create, say, a Black Wall Street full of prosperity and wealth, that got burned to the ground. And we're actually not accounting for those numbers here. It only goes to 1967, which may be when the census started. I'm not sure, but yep, getting lost in more complexities and nuances because nothing in politics is that simple.
The average household income, which is different than the median because it's skewed upward by high incomes like Beyonce and Jay-Z, for example, that's $58,000 a year. The basic concept that Black Americans wake up in the United States fearing for their lives every day.
Well, then that would tell me that, like, the skew is pretty heavy, though, right? The skew would have to be pretty heavy, and it's still the lowest compared to everybody else. So that must mean that there's more lower income Black people than higher income in order to lower that median pretty hard. But we could say that more Black people are becoming wealthy because, you know, they do enter into these. I'm sure there's a small percentage growth or something of people leaving their class and entering the new one. Capitalism does have that possibility. Feudalism did not. The only issue is that capitalism still uses very complex systems to keep oppressed down so that the elite class doesn't become too inflated. I'm not sure if that's the intention or if the balancing just has to remain that you have to have a large pool of uneducated and poor labor. I don't.
Is nuts. So first of all, I don't see the poll data on that. That Black Americans wake up every day thinking they're going to get shot and killed.
Oh.
And if they do think...
He doesn't see the poll data on that. YouGov studies by Kathy Frankovich, posted March 15th, 2019. It says 78% of Black Americans see deaths of African Americans during encounters while police in recent years as part of a larger problem, not isolated incidents. I was like, okay, that's very interesting. And then I kept going down. 63% of Black people fear of police violence, while 21 is greater than white. Okay, so Black fear of police violence is greater than... Okay, so Black people, 63% of the Black community that were polled in this, fear of police violence, while 21% of white people fear of police violence. But there is much less difference when it comes to worry about violent crime in general. 52% of Black people and 50% of white people are worried about violent crime in general. But here is the fact that instantly just refutes what Ben Shapiro was saying. It says 63% of Black Americans worried about police using deadly force on them or a family member. So it may not be the entire Black community, especially when you only do sample sizes, because that's what studies do. They only take sample sizes, right? I don't know specifically how many people were interviewed for this. I would have to keep going, right? But YouGov gathered data and said 63% of Black Americans worry about police using deadly force on them or a family member, and that was 2019. I don't know what the numbers look like now. This is the most recent study that I could say or find. We could probably go down this. It's pretty interesting. 46% of white Republicans want larger police presence in community. Interesting. Black 31% said a larger presence, and 31% also said no change. White people seem to say no change. White Democrats seem to say no change for the most part. That's fascinating. Is that white Republicans want, for the majority win for white Republicans is a larger police presence, and the majority for Democrats is just no change at all. So maybe that's why defund and abolish is just so radical, because a smaller police presence seems to be the lower rung here. But again, like, the police presence isn't necessarily the focus of defund the police. It's the demilitarization of the police, and that's maybe where that's gotten lost, because patrol may be right where it needs to be, although we need to work on profiling and situational training. Focusing the defund argument as if it's talking about police presence, that's just nonsense. That's just a way to shrink the argument. But let's not, we're getting lost again. Here I am, complexities. 63% of Black Americans worried about police using deadly force on them or a family member, from a study taken between March 10th and 12th of 2019. It's right there. Somewhat worried, very to somewhat worried. You have 52% being very worried, and 48% being somewhat worried. No, I'm reading this graph wrong. Oh, okay. Oh, my bad. So we have 52% of the Black Americans that were polled said that they were worried that they would be the victim of a violent crime. 52%. And then 63% believe that they will be a victim of police using deadly force. 63%, and that's in 2019. That's not even 2020. Early 2019. And Ben says there's absolute no evidence whatsoever that Black Americans feel this way.
Think that, then that is not true. So there are two questions to be asked. One, do Black Americans think that? And two, is there any justification for them thinking that? First of all, I don't see tons of evidence that every Black American, 42 million of them, wake up in deadly fear of being Black in the United States every day.
Is that the only way he would believe that there are Americans that wake up thinking that? Because, like I just read this study, 63% of Black Americans polled, surveyed, believe that. So
I do see a media narrative that promulgates this. I do see prominent people from Black and white saying this kind of stuff. But that raises the second question, is that feeling justified? And the answer is an obvious no. Obviously, Black Americans should not wake up in the United States feeling that they are on the verge of murder. 42 million of them? That is...
Why is he blanketing, like, as if, like, they all constantly believe the same thing? Do all white people believe that they're going to be rich someday? Do all white people just think that they're what is it? What is that dumb fucking saying? What is it? Temporarily ashamed millionaire or some shit. That dumb saying that says, like, oh, I'll be a millionaire someday, but for right now, I'm just a loser. Do all Americans believe that? God damn, why is he always does this, and he wants to, like, be like, the Democrats constantly just blanket all Black people into the same beliefs, and then what does he do?
That is crazy. I mean, that's nuts. Okay, that is an unjustifiable feeling. It is an unjustifiable feeling. If Jews, who are the number one targeted group in the United States in terms of hate crimes, say that they wake up every morning in fear that they are going to be victims.
Is that true? What was his framing of it?
States in terms of hate crimes, say, if Jews, who are the number one targeted group in the United States in terms of hate crimes, say that they wake up.
Type in away. Yep. This is a fact, according to the FBI. Jews were 2.7 times more likely than blacks, 2.2 times more likely than Muslims to be hate crime victims. And it's because of the whole, like, globalist anti-Jew sentiment that has been really prevalent since early on, just really hasn't gone anywhere. Yeah. All right. So that is a fact.
Every morning in fear that they are going to be victimized in the United States because the United States is systemically anti-Semitic, that would be a crazy, crazy thing to say. Because again, even though Jews are the most victimized subgroup in the United States by hate crimes, the United States is an extraordinarily friendly country to Jews. It's an extraordinarily friendly country to Jews. And let's be straight.
Like policy-wise? Because I would say policy-wise, there's never really been like anti-Jewish policy besides like when FDR denied taking any Jewish refugees. Besides that, there hasn't been too much Jewish policies, but you know, we do have a stack of papers of anti-black policies, and then having to fix it with neutral policies that tried to be more egalitarian, but really just kind of fought back explicit bias for more implicit.
About this. If there were an ad cut by the Trump campaign saying Jews wake up every morning in the United States afraid of the predations of anti-Semites, and then it had like Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and all of this, then the media fact checkers would be like, okay, number one, do Jews actually feel that way? And two, would Jews be justified in feeling that way, given the fact that Jews have an incredibly high level of education?
Ben's like, but then they would be like, do they have the same thoughts that I do? Like, Ben, like, you also just named people who aren't anti-Semitic as anti-Semitic. Like, that's probably where the focus would mostly go. And we just, like, seriously, anti-Israel sentiment, like the actions of the nation of Israel, is not anti-Semitic. Holy balls.
And they are a very wealthy subgroup, and the fact that very few Jews are murdered. Okay, here are the actual stats on murder in the United States. Right, again, Joe Biden suggested that black Americans wake up knowing they could lose their life in the course of just living their life, right? This is Joe Biden's contention. As of 2013, according to Reuters, if you're a black person, your chances of being killed by anyone,
2013 data right now. Come on. Can you get more obvious with your cherry picking to go all the way back to 2013?
Right? This is not just cops. Your chance of being killed by anyone. Again, vast majority of black people who are killed by other black people. The vast majority of white people who are killed by other white people. Intra-group murder is the most common cause of murder. Inter-group murder is actually fairly uncommon. If you're a black person, your chances of being killed by anyone as of 2013 were 62 per million. Right? 6 per 100,000.
Cool. So we have a relatively safe nation. Like, we're not at a, what would you say, a civil war? Oh my God.
Your chances of being murdered by a white person were 5 per million. 5 per million. Okay, according to the Washington Post database of police shootings, 14 black Americans were shot while unarmed by the police in 2019. 14, which amounts to a rate of 3 per 10 million.
Elijah McClain was not shot. Neither was George Floyd. We're not just talking about shooting murders. Can we compile that with the rest of the excessive force brutality data that we have from that year, Ben? Or are we just going to cherry pick?
Three per 10 million. 1 per 3.333 million. That is the rate of being shot unarmed by the cops. So if you wake up, is there any person in America who wakes up thinking about their 1 in 3.4 million chance?
52% of black Americans that were polled in the YouGov study. Yes.
Their 1 in 3.3 million chance of dying that day? Yeah. No one thinks that way. No one does.
52% of African Americans polled by YouGov believe that they will be victims of violent crime. 50% of white people believe they will be the victim of a violent crime. 21% believe they will be a victim. 21% of white people polled will believe that they will be a victim of police using deadly force on them. That's 21. 21% are really not that worried about the acts of violence against them, even though white people are killed more often than cops. So what that tells me is that the information out there is not going very well. The handing out of information there. And also what the media highlights. So the media is pretty bad. Nobody can contest that. But guess what? Because I do this, I guess I'm kind of a part of the media. So I'm not going to say I'm not. But Ben, so are you. So maybe think about your responsibility on that. But again, 63% of black Americans worry about being the victim of police using deadly force. 63 worry about deadly force. 52 worry about being the victim of a violent crime. 50% of white people are worried about being the victim of a violent crime. He's saying, who? Who wakes up like this? Huh? Somebody tell me who.
Does risk assessment that way. But because the media have blown up every racial narrative in the country to extraordinary proportions.
As if he doesn't do that for a living. Him and his ilk, all of them. And now I have to spend my day doing it on my show because that's what the right's doing.
That's the real reason. So if a lot of black Americans feel like they're on the verge of murder in the United States, that is solely due to media malfeasance. That is not due to any statistical reality at all. Now, in a normal world, what we would do is we would say, okay, the media malfeasance should stop. Because this is actually really, really damaging stuff. How harmful is it for 42 million? Let's assume that what Biden says is true. How harmful is it for 42 million Americans, some 13% of the entire American population, to believe that they live on the verge of being murdered by the other 87% of the population every day?
I mean, that was just a fucking preposterous way to characterize the position whatsoever. Like, if there's 14 million Americans worried about people killing them, then we have to think about the policies that we have in this country and the kind of cultural environment that we create. Right?
How damaging is that to children who believe that they are waking up in a country where they could be murdered for their skin color alone?
It's pretty damaging.
How damaging is that, particularly if it's not true?
But you just said that we are going to believe it. Like, oh God, dude. Let's say that this is true, and then once I get to then let's just say it's not. I'm so fucking confused. But Ben, there are Americans who wake up concerned about these things, and it's not because just of the media, but also because of the world around them. The media does not affect everybody's consciousness alone. This is not happening in a fucking mediocrity of media vacuum. These are people's lives and experiences. But you cannot see it past your little fucking desk, apparently. And now I'm getting mad. And I'm almost on the limps of ad hominem when I know I should be a little bit more professional and calm than that.
It's a really damaging thing. And not only is it damaging to black Americans to believe that they are falsely believe that they are living in a country that seeks to persecute them and harm them, it is damaging to the entire body politic.
But, like, what if it is? And then how's it not worse that a country that doesn't actually go to fix itself from that situation, like that a system that can't correct that course, how does that damage the relationship even further, Ben? But you just...
Because either you agree with that, in which case you want to wreck all the systems that have provided American prosperity, security, and freedom.
Either you hate America or you fucking love it.
Or you disagree with it, in which case presumably you are labeled unempathetic and uncaring. Which is why, honestly, so I tweeted out, what is the evidence that black Americans, all 42 million of them, wake up knowing they could be murdered just for being black? What is...
All 42 million of them. I will only consider this position if all 42 Americans agree.
The evidence to justify this proposition. This led Catherine Watson, who's a White House reporter for CBS News, a White House reporter, to tweet, maybe white people should sit this one out. She is literally a reporter. Her job is to journalism. That is some epic journalisming right there. Now, as a journalist, wouldn't you want to ask whether a proposition is true if a political candidate for president is making it? Wouldn't you want to ask whether it is true that black Americans fear on a daily basis being murdered for their race? Or whether that is a justified feeling? I mean, isn't that your actual job? But according to Catherine Watson,
I don't think that is the job of journalism, is it? Journalism is to kind of report the news, not necessarily, well, I guess journalism could do a bit of fact-checking work, but I always thought that those were two separate realms. Maybe I'm confused now. Ben confuses me pretty hard. But sitting out of, like, her telling him to sit down from discussing how black people feel seems about right. You're totally welcome to actually go to an organizer or an activist or a community leader, a community organizer, somebody, you know, within the community who understands the wants and needs of a specific community. There's no head of a black community, but there's heads of, like, communities of cities, towns, you know, like people that organize and try to get policy in their town changed, which then affects the greater nation and all of that. You know, if you actually spoke to leaders, then maybe you can get a better understanding of that. But you only talk to Candace Owens. I feel like, oh, wow. Is there a Ben Shapiro, Jesse Lee Peterson video? Oh, that would be so cool.
you literally should not report on this. You shouldn't fact check anything that Joe Biden says. By the way, there's a great irony to this.
You just asked, hey, black people, is this how you feel?
Maybe white people should sit this one out. I noticed Joe Biden's kind of white, didn't you? Joe Biden, a little bit white. So she's fine with Joe Biden spouting nonsense. She's fine with Joe Biden promulgating a narrative that is incredibly damaging to the United States and to black Americans.
Yeah, but, like, he actually spoke to, like, Jacob Blake's family, so that gives him a little bit more validity than you, Ben. You haven't talked to the family who was victimized by the state. Come on, dude.
In the United States. Because he's a white person saying the right kinds of things. So it really isn't about the race of the person asking the question. It's really about the question itself. And this is going to lead to an impasse in American politics and an impasse in American life. Facts don't care about your feelings, and it's a fact.
Facts don't care about your feelings. And he just, like, completely ignores the facts. There's the study, yet again, on the YouTube video channel by today.ugov.com/topics/politics/articles reports from March 15th, 2019, on the poll of black Americans and their relationship with the police. 63% of black Americans worried about police using deadly force on them or a family member. Ooh, he is actually pretty dumb for putting that segment up. But he's not, because he's got a base. He's got an echo chamber, so he's not really going to suffer the real consequences of just being wrong. So, all right, I threw up. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. What am I? All right, moving on to another delicious day of please fuck me up with right-wing media. We get to listen to Benny Shapiro ask Candace Owens why white leftists try to silence black conservatives. Yeah, we're just rolling in. This is all on topic. This is all on brand, baby. So let's just keep it a rolling. And I might not be able to, like, say too much in this just because, like, again, I'm not black. I'm brown, and I don't really know how that affects me intersectionality-wise, but I feel like I can speak on issues by being American and trying to actually fundamentally understand the issues. Because, like I said earlier, nobody should participate in politics unless they understand the issues. This is me attempting to do so in front of people, as foolish as it may be. So let's get it.
So let's talk about some of the solutions that you think should be on the table in the black community, which means actively labeling some of the problems that the black community is experiencing beyond sort of a miasmatic systemic racism.
Right. I mean, I think the solution is for black Americans to fix the problems within our own community. The solution is for white Americans to get out of the discussion because we have become the authors of our own problem.
She said white people need to get out of the discussion. Bro, is she, like, speaking that directly to Ben? Should Ben just stop covering BLM? That's funny. Should Ben just stop covering all black issues and stop talking about black crime rates? Is she talking specifically to Ben right now? Because I don't think she is. I just think she's kind of rhetorically saying it because that's on brand for right-wing propaganda. Like, this is a black-made problem and the blacks need to take care of it.
The culture, you've talked about culture so many times. When I was growing up, my mom and my dad never checked to see if I did my homework. It was not important for them to make sure that I was doing my homework. Now, I naturally did. I was good at school, so I...
What? Wait. What? You're blaming... Your parents blame black for not checking your homework? But you're an exceptional black person because you cared about school? Oh, man, that's confusing as fuck. So it's almost like there's an intersectionality between individual and their culture around them, but also like your parents are individuals, so they shouldn't have been affected by the culture, you know? So then I feel like these two thoughts just contradict each other. Okay.
I liked it, but it wasn't necessary because our culture is a bit different. Now, when I went to my best friend's house, who happened to be Japanese, her father terrified me. When we got after school, he's like, Kathy, her name is Kathy, you sit down at this table right now, you do your homework. I mean, he was like astonished that she even brought somebody home because homework was so important. So there's a cultural difference. This is why nobody wants to talk about Asians, because they're the ones that are doing the best in this country, right? And they're doing the best financially. Asian Americans are doing...
Why do we need to talk about them if they're doing great? Like, we should be uplifting the suffrage of others, so thus we must be talking about them more often.
The best in this country, nobody talks about them. It's because their culture is different. They value different things. Black values have to shift. You want to talk about, oh
my God. This is so dumb.
Single motherhood rate, why there's no fathers in the homes. Well, it doesn't it's not good for us when you have a culture and music which glorifies baby mama, right? Baby mama, this amazing thing.
Who glorifies baby mama in their raps? Unless they're talking about how much they love their baby mama, which sounds like they're in the relationship together. What does that even mean? Is there like a song just out there like praising like single moms? Oh yeah, that Tupac song. Oh yeah, but that was like a love poem to his mom. So what the fuck are we talking about here?
We have to get serious about education. We need to stop criminalizing Black Americans who want to get ahead. For example, I was bullied in middle school by other Black people because I...
Dude, she just said criminalizing Black people acting different, and then she's like, I got bullied. That's not criminalizing. That's not... How are you saying that, like, social cues and other people's cultural beliefs and ideals or whatever is the same thing as policy to you? That's so weird. That is so weird.
Spoke proper English. Literally, that was my crime. I spoke proper English, so they would say you're acting white. When you start to assign attributes that are considered whiteness, speaking proper English, caring about your schoolwork, these are things that the Black America makes fun of Black Americans for.
Yeah, but I mean, I used to get made fun of that from my friends too. Like, if I ever wanted to do my homework or actually do any learning or actually... People do that. Like, that's a thing kids do because we've actually found a way to cultivate in the American culture that reading and learning isn't even that cool. You know, being into sports and video games and having interests and hanging out with friends. Like, that's an American culture thing. Like, I've watched so many movies. I literally just watched a movie last night of a jock who would, like, force this nerd to do his homework for him because he didn't want to do it, because it wasn't cool, because he didn't want to learn. He wanted to go to parties. He wanted to drink. Is that a problem of all white people? Is that a problem of all American culture? Because it's so weird to just say that about Black kids, even though we all know too that they live in lower income neighborhoods, right? So what does lower income neighborhoods also entail? Lower income schools, which would mean a worsening education compared to white people. So is that a cultural problem? It sounds more like an American cultural problem because it's an issue of the entire country and not necessarily in the hands or control of the community that is thrusted into this situation. That's wild. That is so wild. Like, my brother used to like call me a nerd for doing my fucking homework. Come on. What? I'm brown. Like, I'm not Black. I'm not Muslim. I'm not I'm just brown. I'm like a mutt in America. And so like you can't even like really equate Hispanic culture onto me and say like I'm all a part of that. I don't even fucking speak Spanish. Whew, all right.
because they say, well, that means that you're not black unless you're speaking in colloquialisms, unless you're listening to dirty rap. If you're listening,
Dirty rap. What about trap? What about art rap?
not listening to Cardi B, you don't know her music. So I've seen this.
Cardi B has the monopoly on black people. If you are not listening to Cardi B, you are not black. Words from Candace.
Growing up, this has happened to me. We have a culture problem in Black America. I think the best way to fix it is for everybody to stop debating about it, so everyone stop the hand holding, and let Black Americans get to work.
Well, it is amazing how many.
Stop debating about it and just pull yourself up by the bootstraps. I think in order to actually rectify and give proper reparations in this country, we're going to have to enact pro-black policies that people, that like mainly in the conservative white, are going to see as racist because it's going to be so pro-black. But unfortunately, that's the way we have to go because the policies throughout America in this history of time has been entirely pro-white. So you got to balance out the scales.
Many white Americans seem to want to take control of this particular debate. The entire anti-racist contingent led by Robin DiAngelo and her white fragility crew, they've attempted to regain control of racial issues in America, essentially by suggesting that black Americans cannot be expected to fix the system, that white Americans are the only ones who can fix the system since white Americans created the broken system in the first place. This call has been taken up by a wide variety of political figures who call for things like slavery reparations from the American government. It was taken up by the National African American Museum of History and Culture, who literally suggested in full-on white supremacist fashion that things like punctuality and delayed gratification were white attributes. So what do you say to white people who insist that they are so woke that they know better than somebody like Candace Owens what the black community needs?
I say you're racist. Right? I find that to be a fundamentally racist concept. I mean, and I've had that attack.
Oh man, the right just loves it when she calls anybody racist. And I love it because I remember her saying that America isn't racist. And it hurt by when she says that, she's like, it's not racist by what the left means, but I am allowed to call out racism when I see it. And obviously her, when she sees racism is pretty different than when anybody else does, to be honest with you. I find that fascinating. Man, what a long-winded question.
White people.
But like also too, like, she's been so ostracized by the black community that I don't know if she can be seen to represent the black community because she is such an outlier and she even admits it too. So it's just, yeah, I don't know.
People that come to me and say, you don't understand. I don't understand what it's like to be black in America. I've done it my entire life. I've never taken one day off on being black. Not even an hour off. I've done it my entire life. And yet they feel they have the authority. That white guilt has given them the authority to help me understand what it's like to be black, which is basically saying that unless I view myself as less than them, I can't be black. Imagine that. I'm saying to them, I view myself as your equal. And that bothers them. That really bothers them. This idea that black Americans are suffering because of the color of their skin. I mean, imagine.
What? She tells people that she's equal to them and it bothers them and they're on the... Who? Who is she saying that to? That was so unclear. Like, yes, Candace, you are equal to everybody. But your opinion of the black community is not equal to James Baldwin's or Martin Luther King's, just mainly because they actually had massive support from their communities. You unfortunately do not. You have a minority support from your communities. Yep.
In a world where people think Malia and Sasha Obama are suffering. Right? That's what they're suggesting because of the color of their skin. But Malia and Sasha Obama should be given handouts in life that they're suffering and they're all these horrible.
Man, she is like doing that perfectly to just like perfectly upset the right because like I'm gonna pick two privileged African Americans and highlight that how ridiculous it is to blanket statement say that they are suffering because they are black. I'm gonna pick two privileged ones. That's not who we're talking about, Candace. You know it. You know it. You know it damn well. You know damn well that's not who anybody is talking about when we're talking about lifting the suffrage of these communities. And it has to deal with poverty, all the policies that have been enacted. That it's I sound like a broken record here, but it's just so marveling to me that they're allowed to just spew this without ever being challenged on their shows. Like it's just a constant echo chamber of the same thing, that like the same rhetoric around the same issues that just keeps getting reverberated, and it never ends of anything new to lead to a brand new policy, only to conserve and hold on. And it's just, whew.
Things that they're going through because of the color of their skin. No, that's not true. Are there privileges that you can be afforded if you're rich? Yeah, that's not because of the color of your skin. It's called economic privilege. And we should all aspire to have economic privilege, right?
At least she acknowledges that money can buy you a bit of privilege.
That's why I like free markets. That's why I like capitalism. We should all aspire to work harder, but it becomes impossible when we have this white guilt.
There's people who work like 40 to 60 hours a week who will never be close to comfortable or be allowed to enjoy that comfy privilege that she's discussing now. And nobody should have to work that much to get over it. You shouldn't have to have a specific kind of job to be able to have a comfortable life. Like, come on.
Guilt permeating throughout every aspect of American culture. And that is what I absolutely hate it. I want nothing to do with it. We have to start changing it. We have to start changing the conversation. It starts with white Americans getting out of the conversation.
So, getting white Americans out of the conversation, what are the discussions of race like within the black community in terms of, are there gradations and places of origin? So the media have decided, for example.
He's like asking her. So what's funny too is I'm dying because we just got through with the video with Ben talking about how a reporter told him to sit that one out, and then he's like, how dare you? And then Candace proceeds to tell him to sit it out. But then he's like, all right, ambassador to all black people, what's it like to be black in America?
Example, that black ought to be capitalized and the term white ought not be capitalized, because the term black refers to people of a common ethnicity and origin, despite the fact that people from Jamaica are not the same as people from Kenya, who are not the same as people from South Africa or Zimbabwe or from the United States. This is all one unified group of people. White people, however, are merely defined in opposition to black Americans. You see some of this in the treatment of Kamala Harris, because there have been people like Thomas Chatterton Williams who have pointed out she's not actually an American descendant of slaves, right? She's not a descendant of American slaves, that she is half Jamaican and she's half Indian, and that if you're going to look at the demographics of Indian Americans are actually the single richest subgroup in America right now, and so it's difficult to make the case that Indian Americans are subject to vicious, brute racism.
Oh, shit.
What are the discussions?
He just admitted it. He just admitted it. What did he say? He said Indian Americans are some of the wealthiest, right? Or Indian migrants as well. But Indian citizens are among the wealthiest. So that is proof that they have not faced as much oppression as some others. So if income or earnings or wealth can be a measure of oppression, can we then say that because black people earn the least amount of money in the United States, they are then the most oppressed and within suffrage? No, because that's victimizing. It's as if the state's not allowed to create victims. That the system doesn't victimize anybody. And yet, I mean, we can see it in many policies, and I can't get into it because I would just be screaming into the void about, redlining, intergenerational wealth and slavery, the whole just crushing of their citizenry between 1865 and 1964, So,
of race like within the black community, or is it sort of irrelevant within the black community itself?
I mean, it's incredibly immature,
and it's going to be crazy too, because they could, Israel could end up doing the same exact thing to Palestine. Is that eventually, after they fully take over and then have ghettos of Palestinians inside the borders of Israel, if that's where it goes, then they're going to be like, why don't these Palestinians ever pull themselves up by the bootstraps? And it's like, dude, hundreds of years. At least 100 years now of just total destruction of their infrastructure if they had any beforehand. So, come on.
I will say that over and over again. It's incredibly immature, and because they just have become so comfortable with being a victim, because society has allowed it.
Becoming the victim. She said something else that was interesting to me. Hold on.
Community itself.
I mean, it's incredibly immature,
Immature. Now, I might be a bit hyperbolic here, but that seems to be a way to me to kind of say primitive. That they're not really up to the conscious level of realizing their situation because their cultural and their community is immature. Nice.
And I will say that over and over again. It's incredibly immature, and because they just have become so comfortable with being a victim.
Comfortable with being a victim. It's not that they have been actually victimized for hundreds of years. They've just become comfortable in the position of being a victim, not because they've been victimized for hundreds of years.
Society has allowed it. You've allowed the toddler to throw the tantrum so many times that this is the way that they think is the method to get what they want. It's easy. Being a victim is remarkably easy, right? That's the easy.
If you go through the history of the early 1900s through the Red Summer of the late 60s, you would get a lot of race riots that are usually white people destroying black communities. So, ignoring some more history, there were riots in the 60s, but that came because of police brutality. Even Ben Shapiro has said that most of our behavior is predictable, so knowing full well by pulling up with riot gear and rubber bullets that would probably lead to further riots and chaos, the state did it anyways because they knew what happened in the 1960s when they used water hoses and police dogs. So we're ignoring more historical materialism conditioning here, so that's good, that's healthy, well-informed, mucho intelligent.
Path in life. Life is hard. Being responsible for yourself, waking up every day, going to work, taking responsibility when you do something wrong, that's the harder path. Saying you're a victim and when you fail, it's because of white people, the white boogeyman, that's very easy. And so amongst...
I don't know why you can't do both. Like, I work very hard and I'm constantly saying white privilege is just crushing the fuck out of us. And just because she's allowed to make class privilege by making money and betraying her caste of people, it's upsetting. I'm pretty angry and hardworking.
Black Americans, it's very hostile when a Black American like me ordains to think for themselves and says, I don't accept this narrative. It's very hostile, it's angry, but it needs to happen. I did a speech at, not Howard University, another one of the HBCUs, and when I tell you I stood up there for 3 hours and just took it. Boo, yelling, just completely crazy. It would never happen in an auditorium full of Black people because they'll be a tiny bit more respectful than they were being that day.
Nice.
But
nice. Slide in a bit of racism there by saying that white people would be more respectable than black people. Nice.
After the 3 hours of them just brutalizing me, at the end of it, they all kind of came up and said, I want to take a picture with you, and I respect you for standing your ground. Let that happen. Let that dialogue happen amongst Black Americans. Let them actually hear a Black conservative perspective. It's hard to hear a Black conservative perspective when Black conservatives are routinely...
It's fascinating that she's like, we really need to listen to the Black conservative perspective. And then Ben Shapiro has videos like, you should never befriend a leftist. The only time you should talk to a leftist is to debate them and humiliate them. Or the only time you should debate a leftist is to humiliate them and win or some shit like that. Like, come on. This is nonsensical.
Drowned out by white voices, ironically, right? Ironically, by these white voices poo-pooing and saying how hard it is for us to be Black. When it's not hard for us to be Black. It's hard for us to be successful when you keep telling us it's hard for us to be Black.
So, you are one of the...
It's not due to any policy or systemic racism or implicit racism or racist politicians throughout the past. Or racist... It's not due to racism whatsoever. It's just due to white people constantly saying black people are victims. It's not of any actual material conditions. Cool, Candace. You understand stuff.
The founders of Brexit, which was an attempt to get more black Americans to exit the Democratic Party. And, there's been similar attempts to get Jews to exit the Democratic Party to wild unsuccess, unfortunately. So what are the metrics?
And it's because, like, anybody who actually... Yeah, they want people to, like, move away from the BDS movement from Israel. And the Democrats, I'm sure, also want the progressives to move away from BDS and other leftists to move away from BDS. But it's kind of fucked when Israel just won't stop, abusing human rights.
That you're seeing in the black community, are you seeing a change in thinking inside the black community in terms of voting, in terms of how people think about politics? Do you see any difference generationally in how people think about the various parties?
Yes, I mean, I think for the first time there has been a lot of chatter and a lot of debate in Black America about politics in general. And I think it's because of people like me, like Larry Elder, who have sort of laid out on the line and just said, this is what I believe, and I'm not editing that. In terms of Brexit, we're in 20 states now. We have chapter leaders and ambassadors all across the state that are in the community actually having these discussions and knocking on doors. And I think at the height of this sort of racial unrest, there also is racial conversation. And I will tell you, when I got started, I had no black fans. It was, you're an Uncle Tom, you're a coon, you're a house Negro, and that has completely transformed. And I am, inundated with emails of people thanking me. And the number one thing that they say, which I find to be incredible, is thank you for giving me my life back. Right? And that's an incredible statement because I feel that. That's how I felt when I opened my eyes after I finished the first Thomas Sowell book. I wanted to just look at him and say, thank you for giving me my life back. Like, now it's okay. I can go out and I can be great. I don't see myself as less than. Victimhood is a weight. You're walking around with the weight on your back and you don't realize you've been carrying that weight until you let it go. And now I feel that I can sprint in my life and I can go and I can achieve things. I know I can because I know that I'm not being oppressed because of the color of my skin. That's what Brexit offers for our members all across the nation. And the reason why we did it was to create an actual community, because I think when you're a Black conservative, you can think you're alone. And we wanted them to just see you're actually not alone. There are tons of us popping up all across the state, all across America. And I do credit Donald Trump with a lot of that, because he just had the courage and the audacity to say it and not apologize.
Did you know that every...
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say that the Democrats have failed by pandering to surface level identity politics. They've always needed to do much more, but that's what you get with neoliberalism. You get the moderate to get enough votes from the Republicans, but not too much crazy change to begin the secession of states in the Second Civil War. But it seems like now the right is becoming so stonewallish that they are the new sparkers of civil unrest and war. So we'll see. Candace Owens definitely uniting people with her rhetoric. That's just undeniable. I don't think I denied a single point that she had brought up. Wow. Yeah. So much just historical she just doesn't understand it. She just doesn't look back at the past and understand that all the suffrage that they had gotten through hundreds of years comes from white policy and white supremacy. But, if she doesn't want to recognize that and would rather profit off of white supremacy paying for her turncoatism, that's up to her. You make money however you want, I guess. This is America. I guess I'm going to close out with this. I found Charlie Kirk uploaded a video that seems to be from the good old days. I don't know what it's really going to say. Haven't watched it yet. It's 2 minutes and 16 seconds. I want to close out on this. It says, know your enemy to debate them.
Point do you think could persuasion become manipulation? One of my friends wanted me to ask this.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think what the left is doing is definitely manipulation. If you're a conservative out there, go out of your way to read something different every single day. Read the other side. Not only will it strengthen your ideological position, but you'll also understand more your own perspective, and then you might learn something and you might have your views reconsidered. But I find so often that the left doesn't even want to hear the other side, that they'll go immediately towards character assassination.
It's fascinating. Charlie here says that, should go listen to other people's opinions. Fascinating.
they'll go immediately towards attacking you. Any conservatives experience being called names by a leftist recently?
Anybody experienced being called names recently? Don't you hate it when you're attacked ad hominem? Oh, no, not Twitch. Come on, man. Boom, boom, boom. Ba-da-dum-dum. Don't you hate it when you're called names by the left? The left. That dang darn tootin' left. All right. Don't you hate it when you're called names? Charlie Kirk says Joe Biden is a terrorist appeaser. Let's see. All right. I don't see him calling anybody names. That's good. Good on you. He doesn't use his Twitter account to call anybody names. That's good. Good for you, Charlie.
Yeah, racist, bigoted, homophobic, xenophobic, right? Right. I love the black conservatives that are called racists, by the way. That's my favorite. Right? And by the way, they say you don't exist. The media says black conservatives don't exist, which I have to say this plug for our wonderful, black Americans in the audience. We have a Black Leadership Summit coming up in a week and a half. You're going, good, in the White House, coming up. The media, you better cover it. You can't ignore 400 black Americans coming to Washington, D.C. So, but
400?
To answer your question, if you can debate both sides, if you can watch MSNBC as a conservative or watch Fox News as a liberal and still have the same positions you have, then you're under the position, you've successfully come to your own positions. I find that leftists, more time than not, and there's a difference between liberals and leftists, there's very few liberals anymore. And
that's fascinating that nobody admits that anymore, is that they always kind of conflate the idea that the left and the Democrats are exactly the same. Wow. This is obviously an old video, but he just uploaded it.
Alan Dershowitz is a liberal, okay? There's very few liberals. There's a lot of leftists. A leftist believes that someone like Charlie Kirk should not be allowed on campus. A liberal, like Alan Dershowitz, will fight like hell to allow me on campus even though he disagrees with everything I say. A leftist...
Yeah, but like Obama said, you guys are mostly fighting between the 40-yard lines. If leftists are coming out, it's because they see you as fascist. That sounds like an anti-fascist movement coming out to shut down a fascist. So...
believes in black-only dormitories. A leftist believes America was never great.
What?
A leftist believes capitalism...
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're one of the greatest nations on earth. It's just we're not fucking perfect, Charlie, and there's a lot more we have to reconcile with, and that's pretty obvious right now.
Is a mistake. There's a difference between a leftist and a liberal, and the leftists have taken over the Democrat Party. John F. Kennedy was a classical liberal. Those people don't exist anymore in the Democrat Party.
That's hilarious. I've just been coming familiar with the term classical liberal. You mean conservative? Yeah, classical liberal is just that kind of label to come off running in the Democratic Party, but really having conservative beliefs. I think his name is Robert Anton, I believe, said the only difference, or a conservative is just a liberal, or something like a liberal can become a conservative without changing any of their beliefs. So I think that's funny. Something like that.
Been taken over by Marxists and by leftists. So
the Democratic Party has been taken over by Marxists and leftists. No, sir. Neoliberalism has taken it over. And what's fantastic for Charlie Kirk is that neoliberalism hurts the working income, the working class, right? So then if he equates it to Marxism, the working class on the conservative side that believe Charlie Kirk are then going to blame Marxism rather than neoliberalism, which is just interchangeable as neoconservatism. But what's fascinating here is to not look at the economy through a Marxist lens, which if you look at it through I would say what's his fucking name? Adam Smith. If you look at through Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations, it's very pro what he called masters of capital or masters of the universe or some dumb shit like that. But the capitalists it's viewed through the lens of a capitalist in the Wealth of Nations, and we have a working class view with Marxism. I think that's the fundamental differences between the two, and by demonizing the working class analytics of economics, especially within capitalism, that is poisoning the well for the working class and saying, hey, this thing that can help you will actually harm you. So very smart, clever, and slithery, I would say.
There's huge distinction there.
So yeah, that's essentially the right for you. That is me going and debunking and fighting the right. It's exhausting. I feel toxic as shit, so I'm probably going to have to shoot some demons in Doom to kind of exercise my demons. But from what I've learned is that we have citizens in the streets not being fully informed, yelling at each other. We have Ben Shapiro speaking about what he really shouldn't be speaking about and also doing it without all the information that he could be giving to his viewers. And then we have Candace Owens telling Ben Shapiro that he shouldn't be speaking about what he's speaking about, but really is just talking about leftists, because the point here is to always build the anti-left ideology, and Charlie Kirk really pounded that in. Anti-left is just the right thing to do. Whew! Thank you for joining me. Please drink more water. Drink all water. We are only going to have it free for a limited amount of time. Nestle's really working on privatizing this commodity, I guess. So drink plenty of water. Try to fit some coffee in between because it kind of keeps the gears rolling keeps the fight against the machine a-going. And I hope you join me for my next broadcast. I've been enjoying this a lot, and I love you very much. If you never hear that, I want to say it again. I love you very much, and I hope you have a wonderful revolutionary day, week, or until I see you or speak to you again. Please stay radical. I don't know. How do you end these things? What is it? What is my job actually? I've been your host at TOX News, where we are unfair, unbalanced, completely biased, and utterly toxic. We know. We just don't care. Thank you.